What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about some Norwegian neighbor stories. And these are not good stories. As a matter of fact, these are stories about really, really bad Norwegian neighbors, which is actually a little bit surprising to me because Norway has a really great reputation as being one of the best places to live, one of the happiest countries in the world. But it seems that even Norway is not immune from having bad neighbors. So I'm actually really excited to hear some of these stories. So let's take a look.
Oh, you won't believe the conflicts that we Norwegians have with our neighbors.
Oh, take them.
They are incredible and hilarious and very surreal. One of the most famous, there was this huge infight between neighbors. They were quite rich. They had big properties. But one of them was angry because one of the houses of the neighbors, according to them, was built on their land.
For one thing, I really enjoy this guy. I really enjoy. This is by Your Way to Norway. It's a great channel with a really funny Norwegian who has a helmet on today. Okay. Yeah, in America, we have, it's kind of a running joke in America that there's always a bad neighbor. There's always a bad neighbor, an annoying neighbor. And in America, there's HOAs, which are neighborhood associations that make sure your grass is cut and your garbage is taken out, and they really get on you for making sure your house looks nice. So a lot of this stuff, I think, happens frequently in America. And disputes over property, sure, that's common. But I'm not used to hearing about this in Norway, though.
On their property. So what did that neighbor do? After some quarreling, some attacks, and some really passive-aggressive things.
Passive-aggressive.
Of course, we are very passive-aggressive.
Really?
You know what he did? He sawed the house of the neighbor in two, so that that part that he meant was on his property, it was gone.
What? What? Is this a true story? Is this a true story? Can anybody confirm this? This sounds very illegal and dangerous and insane. You can't just... He sawed his neighbor's fence in half or his house in half? What?
And when the neighbor came back, they had half a house.
Can you imagine the effort? He had to get there like...
During night.
What? What? I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. This is real? They sawed? It feels bad to laugh because I feel bad for the person. Their house was cut in half because they thought it was on their property. This Norwegians, this is painting Norwegians in a totally different light. The lengths that this person was willing to go to. This is, honestly, part of me has to respect it and be like, oh my God, that's actually kind of impressive that he cut his house in half, even though it's terrible.
When they were on vacation and all of that.
Lots of planning.
Yeah.
And Norwegians are lazy by nature.
Yeah.
Why did this start?
Nobody knows.
It could be a
Listen,
litter box.
Norwegians don't talk. How do we know? Well, it could have been this small thing, just a cigarette. Because that small little detail have irritated him or her for a long, long time. And, you know, Norwegians, we don't talk about our feelings. That's a huge issue here.
We lack the
Yeah,
instruments.
we have no words for...
Is this why these conflicts happen? Norwegians, for the most part, are very kind, respectful, polite society, but maybe you don't talk about your feelings, and your emotions get bottled up inside, and eventually they just burst out, and somebody cuts your house in half.
feelings. And having a feeling is actually a very private, intimate thing, and you will never show that in public. So, I mean, you have been saying hello to your neighbors for a long time.
Eating waffles.
Yeah, and you have been maybe helping them out, doing some small talk. And my God, you don't understand why he clicks. Why the rage takes over.
Because you put the container the wrong way.
That's true. Americans will pretty much act out our emotions, and a lot of Americans will just say what they're thinking. And Americans are perfectly fine being rude and opinionated. Maybe it's bad, but in a way it gets our anger out. Whereas in Norway, I think socially you have to keep that inside. And is that why neighbors go crazy in Norway?
But you wouldn't know it because it's very not rational. But in the end, Norwegians, when it comes to feelings, this is not our home turf.
This is our only communication.
Yeah, we can speak with guns
Oh my
and
God.
scissors and notes, but we can't use words. And we cannot actually go to you and say, please, Mr. or Mrs. Neighbor, I find that what you are doing is very annoying. No.
I never go to my
No, they will never come. Right.
In America, your neighbor, like I was saying, neighbors will let you know. Like, they will tell you what they're thinking. I have a friend whose neighbor was knocked on their door and said, there's a part of the grass that you didn't mow. There's a part of the grass you didn't mow correctly. And they're like, okay, thanks.
I'm so tired. It's midnight, son, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. And the grocery shop. I'm so looking forward to get home to my...
Why are you so ugly? Why are your kids so ugly? Why is your mother so ugly?
Wow.
One of the most famous neighbor quarrels in Norway was this man. He was actually doing mental torturing on all his neighbor, and it ended with...
The 54-year-old convicted by 28 witnesses. He parked his car until the neighbor's car was so close that they couldn't get into their car. He opened his car door and dented his neighbor's car. He stood in the way of the neighbors when they were walking. Oh my God, this person sounds like horrible. He got into the face of his neighbors and grinned and flailed his arms and made faces. Oh my God, this is a real person? This is the worst neighbor ever.
All the neighbors, they didn't dare to go in through their ordinary entrances.
So what did they do?
They had to sneak around their houses so that the neighbors didn't understand that they were at home.
What?
In the middle of the day, whenever, because if he knew that they were at home, he would do whatever it takes to get that neighbor to move.
Oh my, this person sounds like they must have actual mental problems, like something going on psychologically. This is not normal behavior.
It ended with that all the neighbors moved away and he was there alone. So do you have any stories about neighbors in conflict with each other?
Jeez, that's really sad. That man, because it's your home. It's your home, and you get to the point where you don't even want to be at your own home. Oh my God.
Neighbors without television! Another famous neighbor conflict in Norway was this man and this woman. They lived like this. They were neighbors. And there was just a small thing, and then they started to argue. And it ended up with a very aggressive thing because both of them were standing with their own garden hose and they were really splashing each other out.
This one is funny. There's stories in America, videos, people getting into arguments, and unfortunately in America, sometimes if people rage hard enough, guns can become involved because a lot of Americans own guns. In Norway, it's garden hoses, which is much better.
Go, you die, you know what? And after that garden hose episode, one of the neighbors built a 4-meter-high wall against the neighbor, painted it green, but not only green, they painted a huge picture of the Norwegian famous painting called Scream, with the idea that each time that the neighbor would go out in his or her garden and relax, they had to look at this very disturbing picture.
Norwegians have what were they saying? They were saying Norwegians are very good at being passive-aggressive. Not directly aggressive, although they were spraying each other with water. Passive-aggressive, painting a big, annoying painting on their fence to get back at them.
So they had to buy this fence and they had to buy...
No, not only buy, they built it 4 meters on their own. They used a lot of money, and to make that Scream painting, it costed a lot. But the feeling that the neighbor had afterward was... There's a new conflict around. Over there were 2 professors, old professors. You'd think they were rational.
Here, for sure.
Interact with the neighbors. There's a new conflict around. Over there were 2 professors, old professors. You'd think they were rational and not so emotional, but they weren't. One of them placed an antenna on the roof.
Okay.
And the other professor went like, okay, did you place that antenna on my property, on my house? And the other one, no, I didn't.
This quarrels can affect prime ministers and professors and
Absolutely.
everyone.
These 2 are professors. I mean, you wouldn't imagine that 2 smart heads. You know what?
True.
That bloody antenna, they were, for 16 years, they were quarreling. They had 26 meetings in the court.
How did this go on for so long? How can it be 26 court meetings? You would think after 2 or 3, the court system would make a decision about this antenna. Satellite dish, I mean, man. Yeah, I don't think any of this is like normal behavior, and I doubt this is common in Norway. This is kind of like the exceptions, but it is very interesting to hear these stories.
And the court decided and decided and decided, but these 2 stubborn professors, they would never give up. So what happened? Well, one of them had to move after 16 years.
Yeah.
26
for the best.
times in court.
Yes.
We are really stubborn.
We are so stubborn. And when it comes to this war, oh my God, it's not a short war, it's 100 years war.
They do make it seem like you got to be careful if you get into a feud with a Norwegian, because Norwegians are polite people. But they, when it's time to go to war, when it's time to be in a feud, you can be stubborn and very passionate and go to extreme lengths. At least, I don't know, at least that's what I'm getting out of this video.
And maybe the ugliest and the most smelling of all the Norwegian conflict was this. There were these 2 neighbors in quarrel, and it had been lasting for so many years, and then one of the neighbors thought to themselves, Eureka! I've got a good idea to get revenge, to make that neighbor move. What did he do? Well, he took his own sewage, and in Norway we have these big tanks, you know. He took that.
Oh.
And
why do they have to show it? Oh.
He placed it
6,000 meters
of sewage, his own sewage. He placed it in the neighbor's garden, and that wasn't enough. It was in the summer, it was hot, and then he bought some very cheap fans.
What? Oh, what? I'm just impressed by how elaborate the lengths some Norwegians are willing to go. Americans, when we have arguments, it's very basic, like yelling and throwing. And Norwegians, you build out these elaborate plans with sewage and fans and chopping a house in half. You put a lot more effort into your revenge.
Electrical fans, and he turned them on so that when the neighbor were outside they couldn't miss the smell of the shitty neighbor, and the neighbor had been shitting for 10 years and everything he placed in the garden.
Just imagine.
What? Didn't these people, they must have gotten in trouble. I don't know if they went to jail, I don't know if they got fined. You can't just be doing this.
Shit. He had to pull electricity and everything.
But do you remember why that quarrel started?
Meow.
Of course, it was the cat.
It could have been.
The cat must die.
My God. Wow. This was interesting. I saw this video and I was like, wow, Norwegian neighbor horror stories. That sounds interesting, because Norwegians, I don't really hear too much negative things about them. This was different. This was funny. I know this isn't common. This isn't most Norwegians, but this was kind of like some of the strangest, weirdest, most aggressive stories about Norwegians I've ever heard. So I actually kind of enjoyed this today. So anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these horrible neighbor stories. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and learning about Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.